Today on Inspired Money.
I think money isn't the answer to everything, but I do think lack of money can cause a lot of strife if you don't have it. So for me, success is not money, it's the option to spend time the way you want, with the people you want, doing the things you want. That to me is like a successful person. It's a successful life.
This is episode 64 with creator and host of the Journey to Launch podcast and blog, Jamila Souffrant. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If it's your first time listening, welcome. Inspired Money is different from other personal finance podcasts because we don't want to just learn how to live with money. We want to put money in a positive light to inspire ourselves to live richer lives, make a greater impact, and together, make the world a better place. Thank you so much for joining me on this mission. Today, we're talking to Jamila Souffrant of the very popular Journey to Launch podcast and blog. If you've got a long commute to work, have family, or strive to be financially independent, I think you'll appreciate Jamila's story. You see, she used to drive 90 minutes each way to her job as a commercial real estate executive. Jamila and her husband saved over $80,000 in both 2016, and then they did it again in 2017. They're debt-free besides their mortgage. They have 3 young kids and currently live in very expensive Brooklyn, New York. In this episode, you'll learn insights into Jamila's path toward financial independence. Why, even if you're not interested in the FIRE movement, that's an acronym for Financial Independence, Retire Early, it may still be worth working toward because it'll strengthen your financial position. And then teaching through actions rather than words. Now let's get inspired with Jamila Souffrant. Jamila, I've been trying to get you on the show for a long time. You're a very busy woman.
Hi, Andy.
Welcome to Inspired Money. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. You finally got me here. It's exciting. I want to talk to you, so I'm excited to sit down.
And in the flesh.
Yes, and in person, so it's even better.
Even better, I agree. So let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
Oh, wow. Earliest childhood memory. I'd say that, it's funny. So I feel like I've forgotten this for a little bit, and I had a recent conversation with my mom, and she reminded me that she actually took me to open up my first bank account, my savings account. Yep. And all this time, it wasn't like in the forefront of my mind. Like whenever anyone had asked me that question, I never remembered that part. But obviously, it stuck with me because I am a good saver, and I've been saving, a lot, like most of my life. So that, I think, even though I didn't really remember it outright, has been something imprinted in my mind. So it was my mom taking me to open up my first savings account.
That's a super good lesson and super good experience at a young age.
Yes, it was.
Because you know that money is important.
I did.
So you were born in Jamaica. You grew up in Brooklyn. Well, tell me about your journey for financial independence, because it's not just for you. You're also trying to teach people and share that message.
Yeah. So I say that, when you ask me about my earliest memory, part of that also entailed seeing my mom work really hard as a single mom. And we immigrated here from Jamaica. I came here at a young age, 18 months actually. And, so watching her work so hard for money and to provide a life for me, I feel like that also instilled a really good work ethic that I take to this day. And I feel like my journey to financial independence, like I wasn't intentionally on it. But I feel like everything that I've done in the past has started me on the path, whether I've known it or not. So I say I got conscious about this path when I was pregnant with my first son. So I have 3 kids now, but I was pregnant with my first son at 31, and I had a long commute. It took me a really long time to get home one day. It was like 4 hours because of all the traffic. And in that moment, I was pregnant. It was like a lot. I had to break down, and I was like, I cannot do this, for the rest of my life. And by this, I meant commuting, working in a job that I didn't love. I wanted to find like a way out. And up until that point, I thought that I was going to just have to work, like, and just not necessarily be unhappy. It wasn't like I was miserable, but, sometimes you have that feeling like something is missing. You can be doing more. I had that. And I feel like I kind of like pushed that aside because it felt like there was no way to kind of escape the system. I needed this job to make money, to support the family. And then when I had that long commute, I feel like it like really came to like a breaking point where I said to myself, I have to figure something out. And I think I just started Googling stuff and I found out about like, more personal finance stuff, financial independence like came up and people retiring early, and started to listen to podcasts and read blogs. And I'm like, wait a second. There are people, like normal people, saving money, doing this, and are able to retire. And maybe it's not, it's not immediately, right? But it takes 10, 15 years. So I said to myself, there must be a way I can figure out how to do this, like save, become more intentional with my money. So even though I was a good saver before, I wasn't able to, I'd say, manage it in a way in which it grew for me, like investment wise. So now finding the movement, I thought to myself, wow, I'm going to figure out how to do this myself. And so kind of that led me down a path of like starting Journey to Launch, starting it as a blog to chronicle my journey, then eventually, starting the podcast. And so where I'm sharing my journey to financial independence, I want to help others like me who want to like break free and do their own thing. And you don't necessarily have to want to retire early or quit. It's just you want to have money to do the things you want in life. And, it's the tool to help you achieve your dreams. And that's what I talk about.
That's awesome. Back when you were 31 and you had these long commutes that gave you a lot of time to listen to podcasts, what are some of the blogs that you were reading and podcasts that got you started down this road? Yeah,
so that's the good thing. So, people always say, like, the commute was not the best, but I feel like I've always been able to take the good from situations. And the really good thing about my commute was I had all that time in the car and to start listening to podcasts. And I, really binged on things like Mad Scientist, Radical Personal Finance, Paula Pant, Afford Anything, even like just anything that had anything to do with personal finance and then financial independence, like really like I was into. And then blogs like Mr. Money Mustache, and who I actually met today, not today, but yesterday. That was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so really like all those stuff, which is like the typical like stuff that people kind of find. Well, and I feel like now it's like a new crop of like, podcasts like mine and blogs. And so like now people are like finding my stuff, and then that's like their entry into the rabbit hole of like financial independence, which is pretty cool.
And how is what you're doing with Journey to Launch different than some of the things that you were listening to that got you started?
So, the podcasts and blogs that I read and listened to were great. I felt like, there was just like a missing voice in the space. So, as a woman of color living in New York City, I'm frugal by nature in terms of, I don't spend money like on things I don't care about, like clothes. I mean, I used to in my 20s when I didn't like, know any better, but like, I really don't like, even though I'm not a big spender, like I spend money, and
we all do.
Right. So, but sometimes, you'd hear stuff or you hear like, you read the blogs or podcasts and it kind of just showed one way or one type of person doing it. And I said to myself, I want to show that there's like someone else like who looks like me, or, who has kids or living in a high cost of area living, or who likes going out to eat, like what does that look like? What does that journey look like? And I just initially, I would say like when I started it all, it wasn't necessarily, I didn't have the like intention of, I'm going to create this brand and it's going to be this. It evolved into that. Like I started the blog to share my journey. And then that quickly, like, because people were like, how are you saving all this money? What are you doing? That then encouraged me to now, okay, let me show you how to do it too.
So it sounds like deeply personal. You're really trying to track what you're doing. And I don't know, do you get a little bit of accountability from that?
Definitely. So initially it was just like, all right, I'm going to start saying so when I first started, and even though I was 31 when I kind of fell upon like all this, it was 33 when I really said, okay, I'm going to start my journey, and it's going to take me 7 years. I said, by the time I was 40 to do this. And I said, well, if I put it out there, then I have to like follow through because my 5 readers will like hold me accountable. Like, I didn't have like a large following. So, but I just felt like if I put it out there, then I'd have to do it.
And then it kind of changed because it's still about your own story, but you're also trying to teach people and broadcast your message to a bigger audience.
Yeah. And I think that's what, like, in terms of why Journey to Launch, and I think what I've been doing has like resonated with so many people, is because it's that I'm sharing my story. So in one way, people are rooting for me to like reach all the things I want to do. They're like, okay, Jamila, you can do this. And in the same regard, I'm also turning around and helping them. And so when I bring on people to talk about like their journey or experts or whatever it is. Like, it's really from the point of view of I'm trying to get information for myself and for my listeners and people who follow me, my journeyers, to help them on their path. So it's kind of like we're in this together.
Yeah, I love that it is a movement. You're
Yeah.
trying to get people. It's your journey to launch, but it's inspiring many others to take that journey too.
Yeah, because everyone is on a journey. And cool thing about it is everyone is on a journey, whether they know it or not. So it feels like, and I always say this, I know financial independence, some people could be like, oh, that's not for me. Like, I don't want to retire early. Who wants to do that? Like, which is fine. I just think everyone should be on this path, because even if you never reach it, because unfortunately there's a lot of people who with in best efforts will try this and they might not like get to, the $1 million in 10 years or whatever it is. But just by starting, you'll put yourself in a better position and you'll give yourself more options, which is what I feel like I proved also with my like recent switch in, like, quitting my job. Like, I would not have been able to do that recently if I were not starting this journey or on it.
And that's part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
It's trying to get to a place where you have that independence and flexibility so that you don't have to work the day job if you don't want to. It's about choice.
Right. It's about choice. And interestingly enough, it reminds me of like that whole fisherman. It's a businessman and the fisherman story. I feel like I talked about this on an episode where this fisherman is living like a really cool life. He's like just fishing when he wants. He only catches what he needs to eat. And the businessman comes and is like, why don't you like turn this into a big business where, then you get like other fishermen to work for you. And then all this and all this. And he's going down this like path, like this whole like explanation. And then the fisherman is like, but why? Yeah. He's like, why would I want to do all that? And the businessman is like, yeah, so you can relax and like fish when you want. And he was like, but I'm relaxing and fishing when I want now. So why do all that? And so I kind of feel like this is the path to financial independence, kind of because while I'm on it, I was able to find freedom today that I wouldn't have found like without starting. So even though I haven't reached like my numbers, my FI numbers,
You're still on your journey.
Yeah, I'm still on the journey, but I found a way now though that because, optimized my finances and we don't have any debt and saved up a lot of money, I'm able to now pursue like my passions.
If we can take a step back, you've referred to age 31 as like a big number in this journey, but at age 22, you purchased real estate. How are you able to do that? And I understand you've called that one of your best money moves.
Yeah, so it was definitely one of my best money moves ever. I'm so happy that I was able to do that. And so I did that. I was graduating from college and I wanted to buy property. And my grandmother, who also immigrated here from Jamaica, she managed to buy like a 3-family house in an area at the time when she bought it, like no one wanted to be. And when I came of age and understood kind of where we were, it's like the best place, not the best place, one of the best places to like really own real estate. It's downtown Brooklyn. It's right around the corner from the Barclays Center. And so by the time, and I don't even think at 22, there was no Barclays Center when I like graduated from college. But it's in the area where it's like Fort Greene, and it was a 3-family house, and the property had appreciated so much from when she bought it. And she didn't care. She was just like, I just wanted a home. And it was a 3-family house. So it's like she had my grandmother lived on the first floor. My mom lived on the second floor or lives in the second floor. And then she rented out the third. So she was like also like a little investor and she didn't even like care or know about any of that stuff. So I looked at it as like, if my grandmother could do this, right? Like I can do something. And so it really encouraged me at like in college to start looking for something to buy. And I really wanted to buy a brownstone or a multifamily, but I couldn't afford any of that. But luckily I had an internship in college where I was able to save a lot of my money. And when this opportunity came when I graduated, there was new construction in this place called Dumbo. And I didn't even know what that really was. I've been there probably once, even though it was really not that far from where I spent most of my like childhood. And it stands for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass. And so I went there. It was a sales office for new construction. And they had like from studio apartments, like the penthouse. And the studio was like the cheapest thing. It was like $338,000, which for still a lot of money for, and being in college. But compared to like the brownstones that were going for $800,000, it was like, oh, this seems like not that bad. So I needed 10% to secure like the apartment. I got the cheapest one because I really just wanted something. And I was able to just put down the 10%. My mom actually helped me out a lot. And she gave me some money. She gifted me, which is amazing that she was able to do that. And it took 2 years for the apartment to complete. And then when it was done, then I had to have the remaining 10%. But by then I was working full time 2 years. I saved all my money to be able to do that. So put down the additional 10%, the closing cost, and then was able to close on this really nice condo in Dumbo, which by the time it closed, it appreciated in value than what I had put down for it. And today it's worth way more than when I went to contract for it.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
The appreciation's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really cool that you had that vision, but also inspiration from, I think, like money lessons from your mom, your grandmother, to inspire you to buy property, because not that many 20-year-olds are thinking about that.
Yeah, and it's funny because it wasn't intentional on their end either. So my mom, we recently had a discussion, which is why it's so like clear in my head now, all the stuff she did. And she, even though she never talked to me about budgeting or like credit cards, but she was a hard worker and she was a saver. So when I asked her, like, how were you able to even have money to give me to put down for an apartment? She is a single mom. Like she had another daughter. So my sister at that point, and she was like mostly still doing everything on her own. And she worked her way up. Like she went to school and she got her degree and all this stuff. But when I looked at it, I was like, how were you able to give me money? Like at that point? And she was like, she just saved. And like, she wanted to pour into me. Like she did like all her life, like, and invest in me. Like she usually, like just as what not all moms do this, but she did. And I was so grateful for it. So unintentionally, I feel like my mom like showed me through her actions, like how to value money. And then with my grandmother, she really didn't she never spoke to us about money. She didn't know any better. She just wanted a piece of the American pie, like coming here as an immigrant. And so I think I was lucky enough, like you said, I did have the foresight to understand, like by watching, like how to translate that into my early life. But it's funny because it still wasn't intentional. Like maybe if like I did have some parents who sat down and said, okay, this is what a Roth IRA is, and this is how you invest and save money. I probably could have even done more, but I'm just so grateful for everything I had even up until that point.
I think you're doing really, really great.
Thank you.
Coming up, we chat about teaching money to kids, Roth IRAs, and Jamila taking the big leap toward financial independence by quitting her corporate job. But first, a shout out to parents and those emphasizing education.
Yeah, and kudos to parents, and especially single parents who are out there. I don't know how they do the things that they do. My wife is one of 3 kids. My mother-in-law, she was a single parent, a teacher, and was able to pay their private school and college, which it all comes down to saving.
Yeah, it comes down to like saving and I guess
investing.
Investing, like I think it's just that drive you have, like as like especially being an immigrant, like, and education. That's another thing. My mom valued education a lot, and so while maybe she didn't have like the money to put me in like the nicest clothes, like she always like made sure she went out her way to make sure I was in the best like school program. So even though I went to public school, she would like look out for like the SOAR programs and like the special programs. Like if there was like a test, like, okay, we're gonna go across town because I want Jamila to be able to like qualify for this if she needs it. So she valued education a lot, which I think also really helped in terms of like the typical like education, and like that really helped.
Super, super resourceful.
Yeah, she is, and that I think has made me resourceful.
The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/064. If you're listening in your car or wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to learn more about Jamila or things mentioned in this episode. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. The FIRE movement is often associated with living very frugally. It makes sense because the less you spend, the more you save, and that can go a long way when retiring early. The thing is, how does Jamila do it when her family lives in New York, the second most expensive city in the country, only behind San Francisco? Here's what she says as they work toward reaching FIRE. For us, because we want to maintain a certain level of living, like still going out to eat and travel, yes, we like to pad our savings a bit more. The goal is to have our mortgage paid off by the time we reach FIRE, which should free up more cash. There are tons of things you can do in the city for cheap because there are so many options. The city is expensive because of rent, food, and transportation. If we can eliminate rent and mortgage as the highest expense, we will need less on a monthly basis. If you have debt, there are different strategies for paying it down. One way is to work on paying down the biggest portion. For Jamila, that means paying off her mortgage. Strictly looking at the numbers, of course, it's smartest to pay down accounts that carry the highest interest rates first. That way you're staving off as much interest as possible and don't end up owing more money. So while it may be a little counterintuitive, it's worth mentioning. There's also research that says that people who focus on repaying one of several accounts, as opposed to trying to pay off multiple accounts at once, paid off more of their debt over 36 months than their counterparts. In fact, participants who were assigned to pay off the accounts one at a time worked harder than those assigned to pay back their debts equally, finishing 15% more quickly. Dave Ramsey calls this method the snowball plan. He says, and I quote, "It's more important to pay your debts in a way that keeps you motivated to keep going until you've wiped them all out. If you begin with the biggest one, you might think you're not making fast enough progress, lose steam, and not finish the job." End quote. So give it a try. See what method works best for you and let me know. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. So what's your biggest financial challenge right now? Do you need a financial plan or need help consolidating an old 401k or other accounts? We can help you get financially organized and set up for the future. Email me at awang@runnymede, that's RUNNYMEDE.com, or go to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. I'd love to hear from you, and we can even do a short call since it can be easier to talk money. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong.
So you had your mom and your grandmother as role models, sometimes by example, not always by teaching you like in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you are a parent, mom to 3, I think.
Yep.
What are some of the lessons that you learned along the way, right, growing up, that you want to impart on your kids as they grow up?
Yeah, so I want to do what my mom did, and grandmother did in terms of showing by what they did. It's they watch me earn money, and
that carries the most weight.
I think it does, because I still was able to turn out fine even without that. And you can't force it all the time, but so apart from just having them see kind of the things we're doing, which is great, I think also I do want to be intentional about talking to them about money. I want them to know what a Roth IRA is, and what if you do this at 16 or whatever they can start, you'll have this $1 million by this point. I want to show them that. So my kids are pretty young. They're 4, 2, and 4 months. And it's funny because a 4-year-old, this is how I know, all these programming, so, he watches TV and all these commercials. And I started, he's now saying, "Mommy, can you buy this?" So every little toy commercial that comes on. And I'm very careful to not say, "Oh, we can't afford it," or, "No," So I said, well, I don't want to buy that with my money, but when you get money, you can buy it, or, you can start saving for it. And so he's starting to get the concept of money, and when he wants things, okay, you can, but let's figure out how you can get it. And I'm not gonna be too hard on him. He's gonna still be a kid and enjoy toys, right? But I want to definitely teach him okay, this is how you earn money, and you should save some. And when he was talking to me about it, I was like, you can. And again, he's only 4. But I was like, yeah, you can spend all your money to buy this one toy. Or I was like, one day you can start putting some money away and make it grow really, really big and buy all the toys. I feel like you still have to talk to them in the ways that matter to them. He doesn't care right now about a Roth IRA. So I'm not going to talk to him about that, right?
He's not concerned about taxes yet.
Right. He doesn't care. So I feel framing it in the ways in which it's exciting for him. I'm excited to go down that path with him and his brother and sister.
Yeah. And I think at that young age, it's nice to show them and teach them that it's about choices and priorities, and that you don't have to have instant gratification. It's if you put off purchasing something today, you might be able to buy something tomorrow that's better.
Right. And it's funny, I had Joshua Becker on from the Becoming Minimalist, and he talked about how everyone always wants to get rid of stuff and declutter, and then they'll say, "Oh, we have to throw away all our kids' toys," and they're like, "No, you should start with yourself first. You want to start with your kids' stuff. How about you look at your stuff first, and then it's not you can't go to that route, but you need to first do it." And I was just, while you were talking, thinking how important it is to lead by example, because if you're telling your kids, "Oh no, you can't do this or you can't do that," but then you're not smart with the way you spend your money, then how are they gonna really take you seriously?
I know there's the phrase, "Do as I say, not as I do,"
right?
But it doesn't really work,
right
because our kids, even when we don't think that we're teaching them something,
They're
they
watching.
look up to you and they try to imitate what you're doing. So
Right.
as a parent, there's a lot of responsibility to be trying to do the right things and making the right choices.
Right.
Tell me, I know that your journey, you've been documenting it in your blog. You interview people on your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so much of it has been about setting goals and achieving it. Like, how do you approach goal setting? Because I've looked at some of your blog posts where you talk about my 2016 goal is
Mm-hmm.
to save X amount of dollars. You're really specific.
Yeah. So when it comes to money, I definitely have like the big picture goals. And I always say that I save and invest first, and then we spend what's left. And I have a husband, so we also have to like incorporate like his habits and like his goals into everything. It's not just what I want. If it was just me, like I'd have cut out cable. Like I'd save more money, but he likes cable, so we're still working on it.
Are one of you a bigger spender than the other? Is there a spender and a saver?
Luckily he's not really a spender, but he definitely likes like nicer things, like, or not nicer things, but like I know he'll want a nice car one day. We both had like more luxury cars in our 20s, and now we have nice economical cars, and I know like he'd love to have like a nice little like car. So when it comes to things like that, I think he's more, if I send him to the store, he'll like probably like he won't look at maybe what's like the cheapest thing, like I'm like, why'd you buy that $5 cheese? You could have bought the $3 one, kind of thing. But he's definitely not bad with like money. He's just not it's not in the forefront as much as it is probably with me, which is okay. Like I don't think both people need to be all over it. It's great if you both are, but I think like it'd be totally annoying and it wouldn't work for our relationship to like always kind of like control like what he does. Like,
Well,
I
you
think,
do have to live a little bit.
yeah, and and that's why in our like budget, or we just make room to still like have fun and go out to eat. Like we're not super like, oh, we can't do anything. And so I feel like in terms of goal setting, we try to make sure that our goals are incorporated, and we save and invest first. So if I have like the target of like maxing out every pre-tax retirement account, that's great because that's all comes out before we see our check. So that's like done. It comes out before we see our check. We have to live off what's left, kind of thing. And that's the way I kind of frame it. I don't like say, okay, we're going to like live first, expend first, and then see what we can save. It's kind of like, no. These are like the goals. And then let's see how we now adjust our expenses and able to live.
So maxing out retirement plans.
Yeah.
That's like a clear cut, like annual dollar amount.
Yep.
I noticed in your blog, you also talked about setting up a backdoor Roth IRA.
Yeah. So we did that.
Can you talk about that? Because I think that not everyone knows about doing that.
Yeah, it's so funny. So I think you definitely, I set up, we did backdoor Roth IRAs because our income level did not allow for direct Roth IRAs, and it's supposed to be really simple. It's funny because I did it, and then I actually hired a tax person to like do my taxes, and he was like, I don't think you did it right last year, and I was like, oh, but he was able to fix it. So I'm saying all to say that it's something you can do if you're outside the income limit, but make sure that you're doing it correctly, or you like have like a tax advisor, or whoever's preparing your taxes, they double check it, because you can do it where you contribute to like a traditional, and then you convert it like to a Roth, but there are like it's a time frame in which you need to do it, and you just need to like make sure it's categorized properly on your tax returns, but it's something that you can do if you're outside the income limit.
Yeah, it's kind of a loophole that exists whereby you can't have a regular IRA that you have already, like a fully funded IRA. So if you don't have a fully funded IRA, and your income precludes you from funding a Roth, you can set money aside into the IRA, which previously was not funded.
Yeah.
And
so
then
you open a new one.
You can do a conversion into the Roth.
Yeah, you convert into a Roth, and I did. You do it like right away, and then it's funny because we did it, but I would just advise people just make sure you're reading up on doing it properly, and you're reporting it properly.
Yes, so work closely with your tax advisor.
Yes.
So that you're doing everything within the rules.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. So congratulations on your quit day. That is huge.
Thank you.
Because not everybody is able to do that. How has life changed for you in your goal setting and thinking about like financial independence? Does it change a lot? Because it sounds like your job before was a well-paying job.
Yeah, so I mean, I had a really nice, cushy job that paid really well, and I liked the people that I worked with, and they were flexible for the most part. But it wasn't like something I was passionate about, and I knew that I wanted to do more. And I found not Journey to Launch like as this outlet that I'm like, wow, like this really can be something. So I wanted to dedicate more time to that. So I got pregnant last year with my third baby, and I knew once I got pregnant and I was still doing Journey to Launch that I wanted to like give myself the option of like not having to return to work after my maternity leave. And so I really hustled like hard, like while I was pregnant to grow like the brand and podcast and to see what could happen. And because of that, we definitely changed our investment and saving strategy. So before this, like we were maxing everything out. Everything was going up to our like 401k and my husband's pre-tax retirement accounts. Because he's a teacher, he had access to two, his 457 plan and his 403b plan. Our Roth IRAs, index, it was like really aggressive. Then I realized, you know what, in order for this to work, so my husband still works and his income doesn't cover everything. So we need to like create a big enough like FU fund, like, a runway in which we can like bridge that gap that his income can't cover. So we started to save just more in cash and like, I still invested up to the company match, but did it in the Roth 401k. So more like the after tax stuff that I could access if I needed to. So our strategy changed a bit in the way we saved and invested. So we had like just accessible cash,
setting up a cushion so that you have more flexibility.
Right. And also the mindset also had to change because here I was saying that I was going to like reach FI and like, or, be able to quit my job when I was 40 because I'm aggressively saving and investing. So the thought of like, wait a second, we're going to put the pause on that. And like now try to like find a way to like enjoy that or me to enjoy that life now instead of waiting until 40. That was a change because I was like, wait a second, like, I'm not going to be like fully funding and maxing everything out anymore. So like that we had to kind of get over. But, in realizing that, yes, money is great. And like, I still have the goals of reaching FI. I'm still on the path. But taking this break, it could take longer now, right? So now into full-time entrepreneurship. Journey to Launch isn't like, making tons of money yet, right? But hopefully it will start. So either this can take longer, maybe it'll take me longer, but I'm still happier because I'm doing what I want to do. Or maybe it'll actually like be quicker because, now that I'm like really walking in my truth and passions, like, how that works. Like, that's when you like really start to just feel abundant because you're doing what you're supposed to do in life. So we'll see kind of like what happens.
Well, how do you feel now that you don't have to go to the job that you were not passionate about?
I feel good. It's still like, I still sometimes I get a little nervous. Like, what did I do? But I think, when I look at it, there was no other option. Like, I really felt like, you make a decision and it feels right. Like the other way would not have worked. Like going back to work with 3 kids and a long commute, even if I would have changed jobs and got something closer. Like, there's no way I could have kept that all up and kept up what I was doing with Journey to Launch. And so I had to make a decision and I know that feels right. And the one thing that also helps is that, and this does not work, I just have to go back and get a job, right? So it's like the worst case scenario, like it's not the end of the world. But it does feel good to now have more time to focus like on my kids. So like being able to walk my son to school every day and pick him up and be home and not be in the car so much. Like that feels good. I'm still like trying to get in my groove of work because like the kids are so young. I think that's just always just going to be a thing while they're so young. Is to work around them and to figure that out. But it does feel good that I don't have to like split my mental ability between like, a really like intense, like full-time job and Journey to Launch. Like I can really just focus like my work on like just Journey to Launch.
The FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. For you, in your mind, is quitting your job retiring early or not really retirement at all?
You mean quitting my job at this point, how I did it?
Yeah. No, the fact that you quit your job, like, for you mentally, does that feel like I don't have to go commute to work and do this job that I didn't love? Is that retirement or is that not retirement because you have these other projects that you're going to be replacing? I think that you're going to be working really hard on Journey to Launch and figuring out how do you monetize better? How do you create income?
Yeah, when I was saying retire early, like I wanted to reach FIRE, it was more about retiring from my corporate job. I think a lot of people, that's what they mean. They want the option to work or not. right? Like you build up your portfolio into whether it's through passive income or through just you're working off of or living off of your savings, you have a point where you don't have to actively work. Like you can choose to work. Like maybe you still need health insurance, so you work at, Starbucks or somewhere that gives you health insurance. Like that's not going to pay you a lot, but you just enjoy like getting out the house. So I feel like I think in general, probably how we think about retirement needs to change or is changing now that the FIRE movement is like picking up steam, because it's not just like, okay, you're retiring and not doing anything and not bringing an income. I feel like most people, after they like do this, like reach independence or retire early, quote unquote, like they make more money or just as much, because like the skill set that it takes to reach FIRE, I think allows you to then use those skill sets to make more money.
Interesting. So you think that the skill sets that it requires to get there really empowers you and positions you for like future success down the road, just in a different way.
Yeah. And by no means, I feel like it's not even about like, it's not about being like lazy. I feel like some people, if you hear it and you like, your first thing is like, so what are you going to do all day? Like nothing. And it's like, yeah, if you want to, you can do nothing sometimes. But I just feel like usually people who are on this path are motivated and they still want to do stuff. They just don't want to have to do it for a paycheck. Like, so whether I'm working, at a nonprofit, or I'm like volunteering, or I am working on a blog or creating like a company or doing something, like I can do that without the pressure of, oh, I need to pay this bill or the lights will go off. It's kind of like you can really like walk in your passions and do what you love without worrying about the money.
Even when you were doing Journey to Launch as a sort of side hustle, you were getting great PR and media attention. I know that Money Magazine, I think, wrote a feature about you. What is the future for Journey to Launch? Now that you've quit your job, are you thinking about how do you monetize with affiliates with the blog? How do you get speaking engagements? I'm just curious from an income and business perspective, do you think about it more like a business now? Oh,
it's definitely a business. I was thinking about it as a business before I quit. That like was the whole purpose. If I was going to quit my job, like this was going to be a business. So yeah, it's about like monetization. My biggest thing was I didn't want to be like forced to monetize and like do things like, and I didn't want to have to like now like be desperate for money. So I made sure we had enough money to where it's like, even if I don't monetize immediately, we're fine. Cause I think that's also what people appreciate. It's like, I'm not trying to just like do things for the sake of it. It's like, if I'm doing something, if I'm selling something, if I'm promoting it, it's cause I believe in it and I think it's going to help. But at the end of the day, like it is a business now. So if people like want me to continue to like create content, like it costs money to do this, right? I have to provide for my family too. And so, yeah, I think about ways in which what can I provide directly to my community that's going to help them. So, I'm considering a membership program for people where they can like join and like their classes, and a community where it's like that kind of model. Also definitely looking to do more sponsorships with like companies and partnering with brands and speaking, and my goal is to write a book one day shortly, in the near future. So I think there are a lot of opportunities, and now that I have like more time, I can pursue them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Jamila, I like to ask all of the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
That's a good question. I define success by definitely not just money. I think money isn't the answer to everything, but I do think the lack of money can cause a lot of strife if you don't have it. So for me, success is not money. It's the option to spend time the way you want with the people you want, doing the things you want. That to me is like a successful person. It's a successful life.
I love that. I love that. Do you have an inspired money tip that you can share that's had a big impact on your life?
Inspired money tip. I think you have to be resilient. So not necessarily like, not necessarily just like money, like, oh, you need a budget. Like we all know that. I think resiliency is like being resilient and resourceful is super important on this journey, because you're not going to get everything right. I think what happens for a lot of people is they get discouraged, maybe like there's some setbacks, or you don't understand a concept. Like I don't still understand everything. Like I'm telling you right now about the backdoor Roth IRA, like I get it, but I still have to do some research on it, and I'm not afraid to like admit that. So I think in general, to understand that you're not always going to know everything, and it's okay. So you don't have to like, oh, I don't know this, so I guess I'm like, not smart and it's not for me. Like, no, like it's okay to mess up. It's okay to take some steps back. Things are going to happen, but how resilient are you? How resourceful are you to really like see those things through? And I think that really relates to like your, like how you deal with money too.
I love that. Resilience. It's a great lesson in life for whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your passion and your purpose. Can you tell the Inspired Money listener where they can find more about you, follow you, and listen to the Journey to Launch podcast?
Sure. So you can find me at journeytolaunch.com. I also can be found on social media as Journey to Launch. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I have a Facebook group if you want to come connect with me there, journeytolaunch.com/community. And then most importantly, listen to the podcast. I think that's like a great way for anyone if they want to like really learn about the journey. Join me on the journey, and you can listen to that wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jamila.
Thanks so much, Andy.
So what was your favorite inspired money moment? For me, I love how Jamila and her family have a plan. What they've been able to achieve in the past 4 to 5 years is extraordinary. Saving more than $80,000 a year, leading up to Jamila recently quitting her full-time job, is truly inspiring. Her husband is a high school gym teacher. Jamila has done a great job of growing her Journey to Launch brand, so I'm super excited to see what she can do and focusing on it full-time. If you had a different favorite inspired money moment and takeaway, let me know by going to inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook. Let's continue the conversation there. Before you go, I want to thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please tell a friend. If you're up for a little guerrilla podcast marketing, don't just tell them. Grab their smartphone and subscribe them in an app. It's like giving them a free book. Hopefully they'll read it. Thank you for helping more people to find the Inspired Money podcast and to grow our community. Together, let's make the world a better place. All the music on today's show is by Jim Kimo West. Aloha, Kimo. Have an inspired week. Do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.